Guys, so here's what we're doing. We are memorizing a whole lot of stuff today. Yes, we are. And we just took a vote, and 90% of the people agreed that we're going to work in degrees today. But if you feel like working in radians, then here's what you do. You take your calculator, you hit the mode button, and you put yours in radian mode. But we're going to be in degree mode. Let's go. We're going to do sine and cosine first. What's the sine of 0? Oh, so like on your quiz tomorrow, if I say, what's the sine of 0, and you'll be allowed to use your calculator, what are you going to say? Oh, that's good. And I want you to fill it in like that. Now let's do 30. Let's see, the sine of 30 degrees. 0.5, and here's what I want you to do. I want you to write the decimal down over here on that line, and I want you to write its fractional equivalent up over here on that top line. Yep, sine of 30 degrees is 0.5. So also on your test, your quiz tomorrow, if I said, what's the sine, the exact value of the sine of pi over 4, what would you say? No, you're not going to tell me it's 45 degrees. I want the exact value of the sine of pi over 4. In other words, what's the exact value of the sine of 30 degrees? Oh, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. No wonder you guys couldn't respond back. The exact value of the sine of pi over 6 is what? Is 0.5. My bad. Sorry about that. My bad. Okay, so now let's get to 45 degrees. What is the sine of 45 degrees? Well, let's type it in. Damn, that is annoying. That is one of those numbers that you have to remember. So let's do it. 0.7071. What number is it? 0.7071. Nope, not the whole thing. Turns out human beings are really only capable of remembering 7 digits at a time. That's exactly the reason why telephone numbers are only 7 digits. Bell Labs came up with that when Bell Labs invented telephones, basically. Right? Bell Labs was a monopoly on phones. You know what they broke up into? Yes, that's exactly what they broke up into. Right? They have a monopoly on the telephone networks, and the government fractured them. And so that's where we got AT&T, we got what? T-Mobile was from overseas. Verizon, all these other companies. Okay. So anyways, 0.7071. Now, nobody in their right mind would know this, okay, which is why you have to remember it. Your calculator can only take you so far. 0.7071. Oh, good friend. Do you know what that is? That happens to be the square root of 2 over 2. You have to remember that. You have to. 0.7071. 0.7071. How much is 0.7071? Square root of 2 over 2. Square root 2 over 2. 0.7071. 0.7071. 0.7071. 0.7071. 0.7071. Square root 2 over 2. Now let's do the sine of 60 degrees. Sine of 60. Oh my God. Please, dear Lord, let us hope that not everything in this table is a completely random, obnoxious number like this. Right? What is that? How many numbers do you think we're going to be asked to remember of that one? We could just deal with 0.866. 0.866. 0.866. Guess how much 0.866 is? You are amazing, Aryeh. How did you know that? Square root 3 over 2 happens to be 0.866. 0.866. 0.866. 0.866. So one way we talked about trying to remember stuff is to tell a story. And here's the deal, right? And speaking of phone numbers and area codes, right? What area code? Does anybody here live in the 917? Not live in the 917, but have 917 on their area code on their phone? Everybody in here has 914 on their area code? You used to live in the 718? Look at this. Rad 3 over 2, you know where he lives? In the 866. 866, that's the place to be. And root 2 over 2 is just a freaking weirdo, lives in the only area code with 4 numbers attached to it, right? 7071. What a weirdo, root 2 over 2. You know what 0.7071 is exactly? Root 2 over 2. There we go. Okay, so now before we proceed on, let's attack cosine for these numbers over here. Let's attack cosine. What's the cosine of 0? Cosine of 0 is 1. You could just plug it in your calculator. Yep, cosine of 0 is 1. How much is the cosine of 30 degrees? It's 0.866. 0.866. Who lives in 0.866? Root 3 over 2 does. What about the cos of 45? What's the cos of 45? 7071. Who lives in the 7071? The only weirdo to live in a 4-digit area code. 2 over 2. Weirdo. And what's the cos of 60? 0.5, right? 0.5. Whoa there. 5. Mess up my drawing. 0.5, yeah, and you know, some other people have come along. I've had some students along the way say, you know what? I got a better way to remember this. The table is always drawn this way, and it always goes sine, cos, and tangent. And they said, I could just remember it because you see how the pattern repeats itself, but it's backwards a little bit? They said, look, sine is just 0, 1, 2, 3. You see it? 0, 1, 2, 3 on top. 0, 1 over radical 2. Rad 2 over 2. Rad 3 over 2. And then cosine is just the flip of it. If you want to. I'm perfectly happy with me just remembering these two numbers, 0.866 and 0.7071, and using my calculator. Do me a favor, let's go through the rest of the table, let's fill it in. What's the sine of 90? Oh, the sine of 90 is 1. What's the sine of 180? Sine 270. Sine 360. Now let's do this. What's the cos of 90? Cos 180. I don't think the cosine of 180 degrees is 1. Are you plugging these into your calculator? It's negative 1. What's the cos of 270? And what's the cos of 360? Good. So there you go. It looks tremendous, but you'll be able to use your calculator. So what two numbers do you have to remember? 0.7071 and what other number? 0.866. Okay. Now tangent. Tangent needs therapy because it's off on its own. I don't know what it was thinking. It kind of works there. Uh-oh. Oh no. Tan of 0 is what? 0. What's the tangent of 30 degrees? 0.577. 0.577. You know who lives in the 577? Root 3 over 3. I remember that because, you know what? Tangent is third man on the list. 3, 3. 577. Root 3, 3. I have all these weird little things that work for me. They might not necessarily work for you. What's the tangent of 45 degrees? 1. Tangent of 45 is 1.
Oh, wow.
What's the tan of 60? 1.732. Finston sailed the ocean blue. That's the square root of 3. 1.732. Yep. What's the tan of 90? Tan of 90. Let me show you this in the calculator for anybody watching at home. If you try and punch tan 90 and you get an error, guess what I'm going to put down there? If you get that error message, don't write error. You're going to write undefined. Undefined. What's the tan of 180? 0. What's the tan of 270? Error domain. It's going to be undefined. I'll explain it to you. I'll explain it to you in 1 minute where the tangent comes from. What about tan of 360? 0. Okay. Now, Bill, amazing, amazing question. So there's our table. You 100% have to know this. Not know it off the top of your head, but know it with the aid of your calculator. So here's the deal. Bill goes, so like, what's up with tan? Why does tan need therapy? Because tangent turns out, is equal to the sine over the cosine. And that's why this table is drawn the way it is, with sine on top. Because as you can see, right, take a look. Yeah, the reason tan is undefined is because you can never divide by 0. So if you look over here, let me put this down. 1 divided by 0, undefined. 0 divided by 1 is 0. Now the radical 3 over 3 came from dividing 1/2 by radical 3 over 2. That's where you got rad 3 over 3. You good? Good. We're almost done. Don't worry. There's a few other ones you got to remember. Like, oh, I don't know, the cosecant of theta. What's the cosecant of theta? It's the reciprocal of which function? Yeah, because no two cos go together. So that's 1 over the sine of theta. How about the secant of theta? It's 1 over the cos of theta. And then finally, the cotangent of theta. Yeah, cotangent of theta is 1 over the tan of theta. You have to remember these. Have to. Must. Not an option. Yes. There you go. That's your class first slash homework. Let me give you an example of what it is that I expect from your homework. Take question number 3, for instance. Okay? Take question number 3, for instance. Just type into your calculator cos 30. What do you get? Who lives in the 866? Good. That's all I want you to write down. Cosine of 30 is radical 3 over 2. You got it? Let me show you how weird the questions could get. Like, take, for instance, number 13. The cotangent of what? The cotan of 60. The cotan is the reciprocal of what? So this is 1 over the tan of 60. How much is the tan of 60? If you type tan 60 in your calculator, my co-pilot, 1732. That's where you went to, Rad 3. It's my co-pilot when I sailed the ocean blue. 1732, so the cosine of 60 is radical 3. Now, let's bring it way back in the day to September, October. What can't you have in the bottom? How do you get rid of a radical? Times it by itself. Exactly. That's it. That's it. Now, Julius, you had a question about how to do the ones on the bottom, right? Let me take this same question, number 3, and let me answer it when it's written in radians, which it is. Question number 3 is the same thing as question 45, which asks for the cosine of pi over 6. Julius, do you want to attack it from a radian perspective, or you want to attack it from a degree perspective? If you want to attack it from a radian perspective, then all you have to do is the following. Go into the mode button of your calculator, change it to radian mode, okay, and type in cos pi divided by 6. Okay, if you want to do it from a degree perspective, then you have to go, make sure your calculator is in degree mode, and do cosine. How much is pi in terms of degrees? 180. And what's 180 divided by 6? 30. It's the same number. Do you understand? Good. And so who lives in the 866? Radical 3 over 2. Aryeh, what's up, buddy? Okay. Leslie, who's raising their hand? Troy.